Although church membership and school enrollment had always seen a steady incline since the foundation of St. Matthew's in the 1920s, things really started taking off in the 1970s. Baby boomers were now school age, and the city of Oconomowoc was experiencing its largest population growth that it would see during the entire 20th century.
It was crowded. We set up chairs along the aisles here that we have pictures of from the balcony down, and then they set up chairs down on the right side too.
Yeah, it was not uncommon to hear the chairs, the wood chairs. They were wooden, foldable chairs, and you hear that clang, 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 with chairs being set up. Yep.
With rather large confirmation classes, membership was about 12 or 1,300 baptized souls at that time, and the decade-old school building was filling up with about 140 to 160 students. And in 1972, the second story that the structure has today came about.
The enrollment was going up, and the only place they could go is up. There's no other place to go, so that was our choice.
And I think at that point, Bob Averbeck was our principal, and he felt very strongly about an open concept in the school. And so the upper level was built in a very open concept.
An open concept. So instead of that upstairs addition having multiple classrooms as it does today, it had one big classroom, but with multiple classes happening all at once.
It was difficult. It was my first year of teaching to begin with.
The concept was a new approach in education at the time. It broke down the classroom walls and the formality of traditional rows and desks, and allowed students to explore various small groups on their own, with different topics and different teachers. Deb Schramm was one of them. She had just graduated from Dr. Martin Luther College and was called to St. Matthew's to teach in this new environment.
The south end of the school was one big classroom, and they had partitions that divided it into 4 sections. And it was noisy because they didn't have the permanent walls, and kids could move around easily. They had their lockers then in the hallway at the other end. There was a science room that was the only self-contained classroom up there at that time.
The trend didn't last long at St. Matthew's, and within a couple of years, the permanent walls were added upstairs to create the traditional classrooms that we see today. In the late 70s, Pastor Pauschin was coming up on 70 years old. He had been shepherding this flock for 45 years. In early 1977, he announced that he would retire later that year. But before being able to retire, the Lord called his good and faithful servant home. He penned his final message in the 1977 annual report to his co-workers, which is what he called the congregation, concluding with these words:
"May the Lord continue among us with his grace and blessing. May he continue to prosper the work of our church for the saving of many souls. Reverend N.E. Pauschin."
The congregation's longest-serving pastor was no longer with St. Matthew's to lead them and to guide them.
I'm amazed at the confirmations, the seeds that were planted during his tenure here. He was in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. Just think of all the confirmation kids, all the students that passed through our school, all the seeds that must have been planted in these children and these people.
He had that I don't want to say nonchalant, but not a forceful way of encouraging me to go on to Northwestern Prep for the ministry.
You know, I look at our family, and I want to say that he had a special affection or interest in our family, but I'm sure that was the same for any other family that you would have asked in this church. Right. Mm-hmm. He just made you feel very important and very special, and he paid particular attention to everyone.
Although it may have felt like the end of an era, God saw to it that a new era was just beginning. It had been 45 years since the installation of a pastor at St. Matthew's, and there was suddenly a new kid on the block.
I used to work close by here, and I used to take a walk at noon, and I walked by, and there was a man coming to the front door and pulling on the door. And I was going to help him. I walked over and said, "No, that door usually is locked. You can walk around." He said, "I know, I'm the pastor." I thought that was...
Pastor Kent Schrader was installed as St. Matthew's third pastor, and God would certainly bless his time here for decades to come.